We've got a Ork Shokkjump Dragsta on the table today, so we're going to be painting that up, getting it looking nice. We're going to take the weathering effect off of this gladiator as an example, and we're going to do something similar on the Dragsta. So I hope you're ready for that and you enjoy the tutorial. Let's crack on. So I'd just like to waffle a bit about how awesome this model is. It's got to be one of the best Ork vehicles that I've ever seen Games Workshop produce, and I'm really happy with it. Look at even just the engine detail in there. Spot on. Starting off with a Vallejo paint, it's called Gunmetal Grey, but you could also use Lead Belcher by Citadel, that's not a problem. The reason for this step, for me personally, is because my eyesight is not always the best for this level of detail. And I do find later on as well, when it comes to taking photos of the model, I'll often find that I've missed bits of paint and it's glaringly obvious that I've done it, and you start to see mistakes. So this helps kind of mitigate that a little bit, because if you do miss any paint later on, it'll be silver underneath, so it'll just look like bare metal, which is handy. I think the silver adds a bit of contrast to the model, just lets me see the detail a bit better, makes it pop. So we're going to do some Agrax Earth Shade next, just for a bit of shading. Probably won't see this later, but if the silver does poke through underneath, it's nice to have a little bit of character to it. So funny story here, I went to buy some Agrax Earth Shade years ago, and I didn't realise it comes in both a matte and a gloss finish, and I wound up buying the gloss version, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. I'm just working on finishing that bottle of Agrax now. It's taken me several years to get through it because I bought the big bottle. Vallejo Copper is up next. You could also use Citadel Balthazar Gold or something similar, up to you. I decided to pick out most of the exhaust in like a coppery brass colour, just to make it pop a little bit more. I'm going to leave the muffler like a steely sort of colour. You can tell that I'm struggling here a little bit with the camera and the paint. I did go back like between filming sessions and just touch up bits, so it took a lot longer to do than what you're seeing here, obviously. I'm not actually sure if copper or brass is the right call for the exhaust. I don't know how heat resistant it would be. I imagine it would hold up, but anyway. Just going to pick out some of the decals on the tail fin. Got some nice copper coloured cog squig things. Got something on the back here as well, attached to the back of the engine. Looks like it might be a flux capacitor, something of that nature. Something similar to a shock attack gun by the looks of it. It's a pretty cool touch, I'll admit. I find myself imagining what awful racket this machine would make as it was going along. That thing's spinning wildly in the back. It would be absolutely epic, I'm sure. Just another quick look at the full progress on the entirety of the vehicle. We're getting there. It's not looking like much yet, but it will. Going to block in some of the fuselage colours now with dark vermilion, another colour by Vallejo. Mephiston red would be just as good though, if that's what you've got. If you've got a vehicle like this, you need to get as many horsepower squeezed out of it as you physically can, and this red paint job will help with that. Absolutely 100%. Those goth boys won't have a clue what hit them. It's going to be awesome. Even those zoomies won't be able to catch us. They'll be sitting ducks. Only people that might be able to get us is the Eldar, but they won't do nothing. It's an epic shade of red. I do like this colour very much. I've kind of stopped using Mephiston as much in favour of this. Personal choice, but hey. It wouldn't be much of a dragster without an epic spoiler on the back. And that is epic. It's even got its own teeth. This was the only brush I really had that was good for large areas. It's looking like it's at the end of its life. It's definitely seen better days. It's doing the job though. That's all that matters. Just another quick turnaround. Show you the completed state. Now that the red's all in place. We can move on to the next colour soon. Speaking of next colour, we're going to be using Evil Sun Scarlet just to brighten it up a bit. And we're going to be applying with a sponge. In order to get the sponge to do the job I wanted it to do properly, I had to water the paint down a bit and then get most of it off the sponge, just so that the paint itself was a little bit damper and stickier, I guess. I don't know. Makes sense in my head. It just brightened up the dark vermilion nicely. Made it feel more, I don't know, vehicles have that kind of texture to their paint, don't they? Wiping off the excess on the decal there, just with my finger. Bit of an expert tip. And now we're off back in with the Agrax Earthshade Gloss. It's been decanted. It would have been a good idea here to use Nuln oil instead, I think, but I don't have any, unfortunately. So, and Agrax is basically useful for everything, so I just use that. Mainly just doing a bit of pin lining, and obviously picking out all the shady bits, all the knobbly bits. Just trying to make it look a bit, trying to give it a bit more depth, if that makes sense. Now we're going to use Gehenna's Gold, and we're going to go back and highlight all those coppery bits to make them more golden and more shiny. Don't worry about getting it perfect. It's an Ork vehicle, it's supposed to look a bit messy. We can go back and tidy up later as well. Same treatment for the rear whirly bits. We'll be zooming round, flashing gold. What else can a boy want? Let's not forget the pipes on the other side either. I am prone to forgetting things. Now we're going to go back and highlight the silver bits on the frame, the cannon, all that good stuff, the wheel hubs, all with Ironbreaker. Nearly said lead belcher there. We're already starting to elevate our painting a little bit just by building up these layers these slow highlights, and we could go even further. Even just having a dark, a mid and a light highlight makes the model pop so much. It's such a simple technique, you don't need millions of colours. Don't forget to go back in and do your wheel hubs. Just helps them stand out a little bit better. The entire model is basically made of metal as well, so don't forget your air intake. Any other bits and pieces you want to pick out. You could do some rivets as well if you wanted to. Not necessary, but do what you want. I'm going to pick out some more areas using Vallejo Sand Yellow. So you could use Avalanche Sunset as an alternative. I chose to pick out obviously that decal on the top there. Also, I believe I did these side plates. I forgot to record it, but I did do it. And then the teeth on the spoiler as well, just to make everything a bit more, I don't know, there's a bit of a contrast with the red. Just getting these teeth painted on this spoiler makes it feel so much more thematic. You can tell it's an Evil Sunz dragster now. It's all starting to come together. Still can't get over all that detailing, the chains, everything about that rear section is just amazing. It's just such a crafted model. We're going to flip across to the driver and the co-pilot now. All the grots on the side. We're going to be using WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA bits on the Ork driver and the grots, but if we do make any mistakes we can come back and tidy up later, so don't be too worried if you are following along. It's a bit difficult to get in there on the inside edges, but just do your best with it. It'll be fine and it won't be visible on the end model anyway. There is something to be said for painting in sub-assemblies, but I mean, I just don't. I find it frustrating. And like I say, it's not very visible anyway, so I tend not to worry about it too much. So for the next paint we're going to be using Citadel's Wild Rider Red. It's a very nice bright shade of red there. Just going to do some line highlighting and stuff. I do a mix of line highlighting, and I do on these large flat areas that are shaped, I like to do some kind of like squiggly bits just to make it pop and make it look rounded. It does end up with a little bit of a cartoony look though, so it might not be to everybody's taste. Might also be good in future to come back and pick out some of these rivets too, just enough to make them pop a little bit too. This is what I mean by doing the squiggly bits. Just kind of bringing it back and forward over the surface with the tip of the brush, and it just doesn't give you a uniform line, but it does leave a lot of paint. It's more than a traditional line highlight. I did this a lot with my Simhan Eldar. Eventually I started moving up to more like glazing techniques and stuff to get nicer transitions, but I still do this occasionally because I'm lazy. It does tend to work better on these busier areas that are shaped and that have got a lot going on. Honestly, we're getting very close to being able to just chuck this on the table now. We could just tidy it up and stop here and maybe do some highlights on the Orks, but there are some more bits we can do. We're going to highlight up with lemon yellow from Vallejo now. I'm guessing the next one up for Citadel would be Aerial Yellow or something like that. Yellow can be a bit of a tricky colour to use. You'll often see people do a white covering first and then go up through the yellows. But I do find that these Vallejo colours are sufficient usually, as long as you're not painting big areas. Something I have been doing a lot more recently as well is just embracing the chaos. Especially with these Orc vehicles, the imperfections really do help sell them. As stupid as that sounds, Orcs are just not going to be careful or tidy with how they paint, so you can get away with a lot. Case in point, with these side panels, we've done one covering of darker yellow and one covering of a lighter yellow, and they're already looking pretty good. We should have probably thinned down and done multiple layers, but I kind of want that inconsistency in the colour because that is going to happen with an Orc painting it. So for our next colour, we're going to use Elysian Green. You could also use Warpstone Glow if you really wanted to. If you wanted a slightly different colouring on your Orcs. I tend to do a mix. Again, with real people, it's very rare that you find people that have exactly the same shade of skin tone. So it's nice to have a little bit of a randomness to it in the army. I think anyway. So how do you guys approach painting Orc skin? Do you have a favourite way? How do you do human skin? I'd love to know in the comments if you feel like letting me know. Again, I am being really rough with this blocking the colours in. I did do a lot of going back and touching it up and fixing stuff. So I think the end result does speak for itself. But we'll see at the end. This colour is, I think, German beige World War II, but it's equivalent to Zandri Dust from the Citadel line. So use something along those lines. The intention was to go back and highlight this with Screaming Skull, but I never actually did it. So if you want to do that on yours, please go ahead. I'm going to pick out some of the clothes on the grots as well. Gives them sort of a canvassy look, like a coarse fabric or just something like that. I do like to use just generic leather colours as well on them, as well as like clan colours, just to make them look a bit more normal, if that sounds right. Normal as an Orc can be. I guess what I mean is they would use those kind of materials as well as certain bits that are painted. I think I'm making sense. We're going to go back now, and this is Vallejo Black. So we're just going to go around the wheels and make sure they look like actual rubber. And they're nice and dark. The spray rattle can that I used on this vehicle, it's kind of more of a grey colour. It's the dark grey, but it is grey nonetheless. Again, with this particular vehicle, you probably don't want to go overboard too much on accuracy. If you've got a little bit of the grey shining through underneath, it's like it kind of does sell the illusion that it's worn rubber a little bit, especially when the paint's dried. And now we're going to pick out some bits in Vallejo Flat Brown to simulate leather a little bit. I think that driver's got a really nice hat, honestly. Wouldn't mind one of them, especially in this weather. I'm going to give him a little bit of a leather jerkin as well. Sleeveless top. Wouldn't really call it armour, but it's kind of getting there. Accuracy on that was appalling. We do need to go back and touch bits up later, so that's not a problem. Yeah, that red is spot on. I think the boss is going to be happy with that. Back to Vallejo's Dark Vermilion. We're going to pick out some details on the intake and on the side plates. Just the insignia and stuff. Get them looking a bit more orky. Yellow is a bit finicky, as I'm sure most of you are probably aware. Just try your best not to get too much red on the yellow paint, because it can be a bit of a pain to fix. So yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Going in with a Citadel Technical paint next, so we're going to try and replicate that muddy effect on the body and on the wheels of the car. So this is Martian Ironearth. So my Orks, my Sisters of Battle, my Necrons and my Ultramarines are all eventually going to be based with this Martian sort of effect. This is actually a crackle paint. We're not using it as a crackle paint at the minute, we're just trying to get that coverage to simulate mud and muck. But yeah, it just gives the whole 40k aesthetic for my armies a bit more of a unified look. They're all clearly from the same place, fighting over the same turf, if that makes sense. So obviously for you guys, if you are painting mud in this way, you don't have to use the same colours that I'm using. You can use completely different browns or greens even to maybe simulate algae or moss, or just more normal coloured dirt. Just obviously because mine is on a dusty red planet, I want that thin sort of covering of fine particulate, and then we're going to do another layer on top. So that aforementioned second layer is going to be Martian Iron Crust. This is more of a granular sort of textured paint, and it's going to sit in the crevices and be sort of going to use it to emulate a build-up of bigger, heavier particles rather than just the fine dust that we've just done on the previous layer. In some ways it's a little bit like adding, if you think about how snow builds up on a vehicle, it's a little bit like that. That's a good frame of reference for what we're trying to achieve, but with dirt. In some ways as well, it's like if you're only moderately talented at painting, like me, it kind of hides the fact that those highlights are a bit rough. Everything kind of winds up blended in, and it just sells the whole thing as a package. It gives it a bit of a story rather than just being what it is, which really helps. And it looks really good on the tabletop. That's a plus, right? Something I will say is that if you're building up particulate like this, it's a good idea to try and keep it on flat surfaces. You don't really want it sitting on like horizontal surfaces that stand up, because it's not going to sit on the face, it's going to rest on the top, if that makes sense. We've got another slightly different technical paint here. So this is Neolac Oxide, and this is going to emulate sort of like a verdigris on the pipes and the bronze sections. Just makes it look a little bit more weathered. With this one, I do find you want a decent amount of it on, but you also want to not go too overboard with it, unless you want a really weathered copper look. I do find it a bit of a difficult balance to achieve in some ways. And I employed a little bit of a sneaky technique there. I used my finger to clean the paint off the facing of the pipe. And that kind of makes the illusion that the verdigris is kind of sat inside the recesses. It's just a little thing, but it's these little things like that that kind of sell the bigger picture and make it feel like there's actually a story there, like a history to it. Same again with the whirligig on the back, just get enough coverage to make it look like it's a little bit more weathered, and maybe even the parts that they built it out of are recycled. And now we're going to do some freehanding, which I'm not very good at, as you're about to find out. But orc vehicles are never complete without at least some check marks on them, so we're going to have a go at implementing that on this skull icon on the spoiler. Let's see how we do. So start off by painting your surface back to black. You could also do it the other way and paint it white, but I chose black for this one. And then paint white squares over the top. Simple, right? As I did say, I'm not very good at this, but the trick is to keep coming back and to keep refining it. Get a nice narrow brush. Mine's probably a little bit on the thick side, if I'm honest. Water down your paints, and you can probably do a better job than I did here. But you can just keep coming back with the black as well. Just refine it as you go, and just do your best with it. Practice makes perfect. Right, this is basically the end result of our little Shokkjump Dragsta tutorial. It's gone from bare plastic, well, it was undercoated, wasn't it? But it's now looking more and more like an orc vehicle. There are still some things we could do to finish it off. There's definitely some more highlighting we could do on the boys. Maybe do some more shading on the dirt just to make it pop a little bit more, but it's good enough. We can play with this. Even stick it on display a little bit if we wanted to. So yeah, thanks for coming with me, and I'll leave you with some glamour shots of what we did, and some comparisons to that gladiator from the beginning. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!